Dear colleagues, we are getting back to our conference, Nobel Opening Innovations, New Vision. So the number of cars will reach 2 billion cars at the global level, but we have to improve the environmental situation in megapolises, and thus the public transport becomes smarter and will be predominating. And we are coming across the mobile revolution. And the public transport presupposes that we say no to the private cars. Infrastructural changes are necessitated, and in the future we're supposed to have flying taxis and those cars not driven by a human being. But the new infrastructure is necessitated for that particular means of transportation. How to provide comfort within the urban environment? What structural changes are necessitated for the new mobility? And the experts of this session will answer this question. Andrei Mavrinkov, BCG. Damna. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Welcome to our session, New Mobility, Transport Systems and Urban Environment of the Future. I'm glad to welcome you here, especially our speakers. Albert Domingo is our first speaker. He represents the University of Pompey Fabro, and he is the Director for Technologies and Digital Business Areas in the Fund of UPS Interest. And our next speaker is Alexei Koletsov. He is the Managing Director of Hyundai Motor CIS. And our third speaker, Oleg Teplov, the CEO of Web Ventures. And before we get started, I would like to dive into a specific context. We have some slides which specify the general context of mobility and where to go, which way to proceed. I think that my slides are visible. Today, the sphere of mobility comes across various trends, and it is related to the autonomous driving, electrification of transport, and their interrelation in terms of data exchange. We see the social trends, urbanization trends, new methods of effort, which they were all instigated by pandemic, and we see the regulatory trends and trends which become more stringent for exhausts, for wastes, for pollutants, and specifically CO2. Where are we going in terms of new mobility? What will radically change in the coming years? And our position, that is of BCG, presupposes some key trends, and there are four altogether. The first one is the domination of electric cars. And within the 15 years, 1/3 of all cars will have an electric drive, and they will not have a hybrid technologies, but just electricity, and their share will be growing further. On the other hand, the role of the co-sharing will be used. Now we call it mobility on demand, and they are resorted to using taxis, using new types of mobility, car sharing, carpooling, and other types of micro-mobility. And this particular means of transport take their considerable share, and it is going to grow in the future as well. And radical changes are related to the degree of autonomous approach of cars. That is level 1. These are man-made cars, man-driven cars, but they use some kind of onboard systems as a prompt. But within the coming 15 years, the share of autonomous cars will be predominating, and they are all very actively tested. And the next trend is the connection with the internet and connectivity, and it will become a norm which will open up some new opportunities for transport coordination, for the management of traffic with the incorporation of AI. Of course, these trends affect business and affect customers as well as the urban area. If we talk about business, what we see now, we see that 95% of profit is generated in the classical segments: classical cars, classic components, classic service, insurance, etc. This is a traditional business. New segments, the autonomous cars and the electric cars, so they do not derive very high profit, and so far it's close to zero. And but the situation will change pretty soon. And in 15 years' time, by our estimates, 50% of this profit will be generated at the expense of the new segments, including not only the new means of transportation, but new means of mobility on demand in particular. This will change the makeup of the city. On one hand, the experience of a person in mobility will be less costly, and there will be more modality to be selected for transportation, and it will be easier to change modality, to create your itinerary, but then we will have less and less transport in the center, and the public space will be liberated and will be used for other purposes. And all these changes will be visible in the coming 15 years, thus identifying a new revolution in the new mobility. If we view this problem from another angle in the short term, it's worthy to mention pandemic situation. We in BCG work on the rating, which is called the City for Everybody. Already we issued the first rating, and we compare cities and towns as to their attractiveness, including the mobility component. In 2022, we are preparing a new version of our rating as a result of interviewing of the population. And we also not only interview the population, we have quite a questionnaire for everybody, and including satisfaction or mobility, and we talked about the effect of pandemic with them. And these polls and statistics showed the improvement, and surprisingly as it might seem, that mobility is a key factor nowadays. No longer we have the load, which used to be very heavy on the roads, and it shows some kind of diminishing effect onto the traffic and traffic jams especially. Also, there's less load onto the passengers in the transport systems. And there were some other positive effects related to the ecology, and no more that we have quite a high concentration of solid particles, also car accidents minimized, and the travel time also was minimized. And we're going to keep track of all these indicators, but nevertheless, we have to speak about the positive signals of this process. And one more aspect to mention is that the cities and towns handle quite successfully this new mobility factor with a combination of a pandemic. And who succeeded in that? I think that mobility tends to be one of the leaders. But as the management of mobility, it is still a gap to be breached in the cities and towns. This is an introduction which I specially drafted for you all in order to tune everybody in onto the discussion on global trends. And I would like to give the floor to our speakers and put the first blitz question to everybody. What do you think? What about the most serious problem we are facing today in terms of mobility, and which should be settled? Please answer this question real quick, and then we will discuss it further. Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry for being somewhat late. And the key thing here about the new mobility is snowfall, which affected the entire situation in Moscow. And now we are amidst the super immobility. And online and offline, our colleagues experienced it today. But we will find the solutions for sure. And at any point of time, we will have this mobility, we will have it feasible. Thank you so much. We are talking about this aspect, the open innovations. Globally, there are no limitations of any kind. We have some standard infrastructural limitations, that is the throughput capacity, the railroad infrastructure, global or non-global. Some issues could hardly be settled in terms of mobility. But in the current conditions, being ahead of time, we need to think about hydrogen, electrification, and installation of charging stations, power charging stations. And this is some kind of a long-term perspective in the federal context. Thank you, Albert. What do you think about it? What is this most serious problem in terms of mobility?
In terms of mobility of the future, what we think it's going to be the coverage, network coverage that will manage the entire beacons of the city or different platforms we are going to run every application for mobility. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Indeed, dear colleagues, I see quite a positive approach as to the mobility status and challenges we are facing. We either incorporate some technologies of the long-term nature, or you have to proceed from the current situation, like a snowfall. Yes, let's somehow elaborate on the subject of the future. Albert, I would like to put a question to you. We are talking about technologies, and indeed, it gives us a ray of hope that sooner or later there will be no collapse if the number of cars will be growing. The system will be more manageable, efficient, and scalable. What is your opinion in terms of technologies to be applied? How artificial intelligence may be used? What are the prospects to foresee? What has been deployed already? And what are those effects we are anticipating? You already mentioned networks, but what other factors may hamper the introduction of these technologies?
Okay, so again, coverage of 5G mainly, so wireless networks are going to be one of the main technologies we need to deploy to the entire city. So imagine the coverage for any street, any corner They are going to have beacons, mainly speaking. So the city will speak to the mobility cars, buses, mopeds, scooters, all these parts of mobility we're going to have on the city. We have to think it as a mobility as a service right now. So it will be personalized, this mobility. So this has a difficulty with applications. Everything is run right now with the mobile phone. And it means you have hundreds of applications just to move from A to B if you want to use this shared mobility. So the city mobility with a shared mobility car, with a moped to go from A to B. And this will mean that we need non-zero blockchain technologies, for example, to interchange to all the apps your personal information. It means we need perfectly crossings in infrastructure in the city. Maybe it's going to be more tunnels. Maybe it's going to be more elevated platforms. Even if it's a flying car, as you said before, we will need more regulation on altitudes, etc. So we need a lot of regulation there. That's going to be something that blocks maybe innovation. We see also as investment for innovation that startups are going to be more difficult to be bought by manufacturing cars companies, for example, because they grow on the edge of regulation. We say the edge to not say they are not complying with regulation. And this means that they grow so quick that they need so much investment, like millions, then to bought them is not anymore a question of 100,000 euros, it's a question about million euros. And that stalls a bit the innovation. And what else? You said electrification, of course, is going to be another handicap for growing in technology. We will need, those beacons will run with energy, and also the charging points. We need to mentally imagine this artificial intelligence to control those grids, right? So not everybody charging at the same time, knowing when a user is going to pick a car and charging it just before, so the last boost for batteries to save their life. So we could talk a lot about technologies. Andrei?
Спасибо, Альберт.
Thank you, Albert. It's a very interesting statement.
Вот уже сегодня можем
Already today, we may talk about the AI technologies application, and AI seriously changes the new mobility, and there could be some effects visible at the macro level, not the pilot projects, but the full-scale projects due to the AI application.
Yeah. So if we imagine artificial intelligence applied to managing the city, it has to imagine when everybody's going to use the service, provide everything ready for that service. And that means that it will need a lot of computation. So you have to imagine that cars will also have this small artificial intelligence. We say small because they have to take decisions in less than 5 milliseconds. So you don't have to run an artificial intelligence so difficult to understand for the car that when it takes the decisions, it's 20 seconds after it happened, the event. So also for city planning is going to be difficult. But again, it has a positive part, which is going to help those managers providing this best service. So we have to think about affordable to everyone, mobility ready for disabled people, security, and this artificial intelligence is going to help these public servants, the ones in the city council, to provide this best service to everybody. If you want, I can speak about autonomous vehicles and how we see it. I don't know, Andrei.
Спасибо, Альберт. Ну, то есть
Thank you, Albert.
Мы видим, что,
Thank you, Albert.
в принципе, эти технологии
What we see, these technologies are mostly used for management
в масштабе, но
at a scale
автомобилях, да, для
of mid-sized scale, but they are not applicable for car management. And today we were talking about the incorporation of the technologies. What are those barriers we have? And we need a coordination of regulators, we need investments, we need the coordination of the suppliers of service, of car producers. We cannot structure a new system of mobility
чьей-то волей, да.
just using your own will. There should be coordination of many stakeholders. And I would like to have a deep dive onto the role of the car producers and put a question to Alexei.
Алексей, несколько вопросов. Да.
Several questions. First question is, how do you see as an auto producer, automaker? So how can an automaker transfer from a classical production of cars to the role, to the leading role and making a new system of mobility? Do you see a demand from the market for new technologies, and what do you do in this direction also? Thank you, Andrew, for your question. Answering the first part of the question regarding transfer of automakers from production of cars to production of services, we don't see any other way out. The scenario is only one. So either there can be a degradation of the brand itself, or we have to strengthen our transformation. And our company has Hyundai Motor has this strict strategy, and our main goal is to transform from production. We are one of the largest production. We are in the top 5 of car producers. And we want to present the services on mobility. Speaking about demand, we form this demand ourselves also. Remember this digitalization, many services, even pandemic pushed it, of course, but so 2-3 years ago they were impossible, but now they are already natural for the majority of our citizens. If we speak about our country, for example, delivery from shops, car sharing services, taxi services, as the way they work now. For example, in 1 second you have a problem of downloading, it will irritate you. But several years ago you were calling operators and you clarified the address. You could also give the application for taxi ordering, for example. In auto industry, the same shifts. Our industry is very conservative. For 100 years, nothing has been changed. A factory, a dealer, and a customer. And this is the chain which has been existing for many years, since the time a car was, manufactured, the first car was manufactured. We want to change our strategy. We shifted quite seriously in order to transform this these things which are going on, and customers change. They want something else. Andrew, can I now open my presentation? Of course, yes, you can. Just 1 second, because your question concerns our strategy, and I like your slides very much regarding distribution of profit. And we understand very well that production activity in the horizon of 15-20 years, the profit will equal 0. It will be not enough to produce a good car, for the company to build plants. We need to give a set of services and competencies in this area. Will define whether this company stay in the market or not, and whether it will be a leader at the market or not. And here, when we speak about mobility, our company invests a lot of money and efforts into different types of mobility regarding in Vegas, we had the exhibition, and our company, it's a stand. It was a stand, and we represented the company, the concept of air mobility at this stand. Our company has a subdivision on setting up air passenger vehicles. It will maybe appear by 2030, but we are actively working at this already now. And in the concept of smart city and in the concept of complex solutions on mobility for people, this is a good example, the prototype of our passenger drone. And then at some exhibitions, we already announced the concept of urban mobility. This is a complex solution, and now this concept is being tested, and in the future we'll speak about this. We'll speak about the cities where it will be implemented. And in brief, this is a combination of passenger hubs and also autonomous, fully autonomous electrical vehicles or hydrogen-based vehicles. So this transport will get to people to some points, hubs accept drones. This will be a combination of public transport and personal transport. And so autos, just usual cars, also will be autonomous, and they will get to these hubs. It will be a complex infrastructure, and it will need reconsidering of the whole city transport ecosystem. But nevertheless, as consumers, we look at this very attentively, and we invest into this because the future is behind it. As producers, we are able to offer solutions, not only to buy, to sell cars, but also to provide mobility of population in this or that region or countries. And then robots. Maybe you've heard that our company acquired Boston Dynamics, the company on manufacturing robots. This is also a part of parcel of this ecosystem, transport ecosystem, which possibly in the future will provide for mobility of not only people but also cargo. Now robots in a test mode deliver components on the conveyors. In the future, maybe it will be a part of transport logistic infrastructure, and within the framework of urban mobility, it will be integrated. Delivery to shops in the walking distance, for example, in the center of the city, where it's difficult to have maneuver. So this is autonomous heavy trucks. So we also have some prototypes which can provide for international or intercity transportation. This is only one of the part of this concept of innovations in mobility. And of course, autonomous mobility, it's not the future, it's today. And this is great because we have our Sonata here, and this is fully autonomous car. Together with the Yandex, we did it, and Yandex is testing it very actively. I also used this car autonomously. The operator was in front; he didn't do anything, and the car was taken out from one point. So there were traffic lights. And then it came back, and this is already today. This is present, but expanding and expanding these technologies, AI, it's also here with us. Maybe we'll start with the commercial part, but then we'll shift to the passenger sector, and it will be always expanding. This is so exciting to look at this, how it's developing. And now, speaking about global trends which are going in parallel with with this mobility. And if you want to understand what mobility is, the role of automakers, as automakers now, our concern is ecological sphere, and we invest in intensification. This is a global trend, and in the nearest future, our line of electrical vehicles will have different types and modifications. And recently, we've announced about our strategy of decarbonization, or the strategy of net zero economy, net zero activity. By 2030, our company will shift to net zero concept. So we'll be electrified fully, and we'll also modernize our model types. Fully electrical vehicles are a part of parcel of our factory, and in Russia, in the middle of next year, we'll launch the first car, Ioniq 5. This is the first Hyundai which is fully electrical, and it has already been launched in Korea and in some other markets. And next year, we'll bring it to Russia, and we'll launch official sales. In 2023, fully electrical vehicles will emerge in our premium brand Genesis. So we are planning to expand the presence of electrical vehicles, and their share will grow in Russia. Maybe not so quickly, but we're sure that in Moscow, in such metropolis as Moscow, there will be demand, and the program of Moscow government on infrastructure development envisages a lot of different electrical infrastructural stations, filling stations, and within the framework of decarbonization, I would like to take note of this, that we are actively investing. And we are investing in this sphere, and we have a car on fuel elements. We're speaking about hydrogen. Together with electrical vehicles, the biggest part will be hydrogen-based vehicles. Of course, now we need to achieve green hydrogen, and this will take several years, and then we'll speak about fully green cycle, and green hydrogen plus hydrogen-based vehicles, and this will be a real ecology, eco-friendliness. Of course, here there is an issue of infrastructure, but still we are investing actively in this. Maybe you have heard about this, that since last year we started already to sell our hydrogen trucks, hydrogen-based trucks in Europe, and our European customers started to operate them commercially, in a commercial area. In truck segment, it will be in demand, and then in the passenger segment, it will be also in demand. But then still it should take some time. But on the other hand, so this is how we see future, and as producers we are responsible for ecology, and for us this direction is a key one. Now, speaking about Russia, you know that in 2019 we established the company, a separate company, Hyundai Mobility Lab in Skolkovo. This was a startup, and now it's a startup. This is the company, the goal of which is development of different solutions, IT solutions for mobility. And the first product of this company became Honda Mobility. This was the first service in Russia on subscription, Why the first one? Because our competitors also have some services, subscription services, and it's fully digital. You just with one click you can buy a car with the price from 1 billion, from 1 million to 5 million, and these digital services which we launch here and which we launch on Honda brand, their main attribute is fully digital format. I'm glad to say that now at this stage we have more than 5,000 subscribed. So 5,000 cars we sold. So now 2 years passed. On the whole, we are pleased how it works. So how do people perceive this new type of mobility? They perceive it very well, and the program will develop quickly, and each year will double the volume of subscriptions. This ecosystem, which we started to organize 2 years ago, and online sales also are important. Within the pandemic, we started to develop services, and now you can buy a Honda car in online mode to pay insurance, for insurance, no contacts with managers, no negotiations. You just sign. You should come to us and sign an act, and that's all. Speaking about subscription, there is no human communication at all. You just open up an application and go out. If you want to buy a car online, you can do the same. But you need, but still, in this case, you need to come to us and sign an act of selling and buying contract. Also, we're speaking about we're thinking about cars with mileage, and this year we have launched a new platform on online selling of cars with mileage. It's called Yuka, and you can download this information anywhere. We have more than 13,000 registrations. This is the platform where a Honda car is presented, and then we'll do this as a brand platform. So here you can buy a car with mileage fully online, and then secondly, you buy fully checked and the cars. If we speak about car market, 1.7 million of cars. The cars with mileage is huge. The market of cars with mileage is huge, but it's wild. For you, as a customer, to sell a car, it's a stress. It's a real stress. You first need to place an advertisement, but here you can do this online, and also you can buy online because the cars are checked, and we give you a guarantee as an automaker for these used cars. And here, Andrew, we can't hear you. No, we can't hear you at all. Now, maybe it's technical. It's a technical problem. Alexei, I also have to observe. So I just want to say that we are speaking about innovations, and this is future. But our company, which is developing it here and now, proves that new, innovative, digital, integrated services are already in demand right now, and this is our main conclusion. And we are transforming, modernizing at the Russian market. Now we are becoming a producer of services on mobility. Thank you very much. I'm really impressed by your long-term vision and these horizons which you are working at. But here it's also important that cities also should perceive these technologies and absorb them.
Хотел бы задать
Now I would like to ask Oleg,
вот мы знаем, что
ask Oleg about this. We know that your corporation, Web Ventures, is also working in this area, and you do this in different cities, in the regions of Russia. How do you see future? How do you see future effective transport system? Will this system include such technologies as Alexei has mentioned, or will it be more modest and down to earth? Thank you, colleagues. After such wonderful presentations, the vision of
транспорта и мобильности сложно, конечно, выступать, но я попробую.
So it's difficult to say something, but I, on behalf of Web Ventures Corporation, I would comment on this.
Действительно,
You know,
на самом деле, неспроста сказал про снег.
I mentioned snow
Это одно из
because this is a natural
и знаете,
natural thing which also impacts on our mobility.
дронами, которые ездят.
So I saw the pictures of drones which transport people, cargo autonomously, and I remember the picture which I saw on Telegram channel, traffic jam from
После выпадения снега, ну то есть 15.
so 15 robots are waiting and standing while snow is removed. This is also some part of our mobility, readiness of the city
Инфраструктуру нам создавать.
to create this infrastructure.
Что еще хочешь сказать?
What else I want to say?
И ваши прогнозы, и
Your forecast and analysis of this trend regarding transport markets and city consumption
так называемый sharing economy или
is coming to a sharing economy
от самого простого
from the simplest one,
потребления
public transport,
до
and till car sharing subscriptions.
меры, они есть.
You said a lot of examples. There are such examples at the market. People say, I don't need a car. I will subscribe and change it once per month, once per two, because for me it's more comfortable and convenient. I choose a person
Города, муниципалитета, страны дать эту комфорт.
I give this comfort to citizens. As a web corporation,
Работать с городской
has a goal to work with urban economy. This is our priority of work for our whole group, not only Web Russian Federation, but also subsidiaries and organizations which are included in our coordination.
И здесь вот в городской экономике мы видим
In urban economy, we can see
лепестки,
certain
куда входит
directions, digitalization, technological development, utilities, and so on.
все уровни,
All these different directions
которые
we can see, and we give a person, a citizen,
ключевым
them, and they are top priority for us of our investments and views.
не просто работаем
We don't only work with one city or with one producer, with one factory. We look at this in
о количестве,
in a complex way, and we have not only large cities, big cities, which are leaders already in this direction.
я с гордостью считаю, что
I'm proud to say that Moscow is one of the world leaders, and in accordance with some estimates, BCG and so on, it is a leader here.
также мы
But also we look with other cities, we work with other cities, not only Moscow, but when there are 500 people, and each city has its own model of payback. this approach.
Начинать нужно,
And we should start
мы говорим о комплексной
with this. So when we start with a complex, when we speak about a complex platform, we need to start with traffic flows, efficiency of routes,
вот этого анализа
analysis of how to make moving around the city more efficient.
иностранный коллега говорил,
Our foreign colleague said that if you want to come from one point to B, from another point, you need to change different types of transport. And this multimodality of transport, possibility to, for example, change different types of transport, it's a great chance already for us. This is a complex transport program for us, and we also are implementing it. One of the first examples which we realized quite successfully, and we are proud of this example, this is replacement of bus fleet in Tver city. Not only at the so we not only pressed them with better buses, more comfortable buses, but these new buses are also integrated in city digital program, which is integrated in all types of transport. For example, now they can, these people, citizens in their city, they have an application, and they can look into this application and see when a bus will come, for example. So then they can manage traffic lights. And this is all very convenient for us. And this is also a part of development of traffic infrastructure. This is our basic level, of course. Here we need to understand the position of municipalities of the city, to listen to opinions of ordinary people. But there is no limit for us, and we go further. We work with producers. And if speaking about private cars, we can see that such companies as Hyundai, for example, they offer more and more solutions which are more adaptive. And the same trend concerns public transport, starting with the smart electrical cars, ending up with electrobuses, which can be linked with one and the same network. And we can see this in the city, that this digitalization allows people be more efficient. A person changes different types of transport, and he doesn't. He can be always online. He can see when he needs to change the transport and so on. And our partners are interested in this, and they offer us different solutions to make their lives more efficient. And it's well known that when we first we have solutions in personal transport, then public transport also take it over, and some regions. So I want to mention about hydrogen.
To hydrogen, and some regions in their program of development decided to become carbon neutral by 2030, introducing the first hydrogen railroad car, and with the infrastructure, with the charging stations, and transferring the motor vehicles park of car sharing onto the electricity. And we would like our citizens, the citizens of our region, to feel comfortable from the perspective of the environment. And we are talking not about the batteries or panels per se, and cars and wagons and freight cars, but we're talking about the power stations
внедрять это в городе. Чем больше заправок, тем
power charging stations, and there's supposed to be as many at the city as possible. And this is a very predictable model to have as many stations as we can. And electricity and hydrogen is all about the environment. And the transport system
в том числе экологичность.
it gives the ecological impetus to the city. We do not want any exhausts, we do not want any dirt and any pollutants, and we have to manage all these processes at the online basis. And our portfolio companies drive all along Moscow. We know about Wi-Fi and phone. Metro has Wi-Fi, and there was another company
Заключила договор с
to conclude an agreement with the Moscow city government on the delivery of special detergents like shampoo for roads, which are environmentally friendly, and thus giving a chance to all cars to use clean roads.
прогнозируемо менее
And they will have more predictable drive, less
наверное, в
car accidents will take place. It will be more safe and secure. Yes, we are somewhat
эта работа
exceeding the time limit, and this work is
ключевой, наверное, элемент.
targeted onto one key component, that is convenience for every citizen
Комфорт от того, что он
and comfort
пользуется этим транспортом.
from using this particular means of transport, that he uses it on a regular basis, providing flexibility and mobility, exactly what we're talking about. And we want it to happen more often in the Russian citizen towns, at least in 100. And we have this program in place jointly with Web. I may extrapolate onto other facts, but we're pressed for time. Thank you. Thank you very much. And summing up, I would like to mention that everything is done for the sake of a human being. Indeed, we see quite a spectrum of opportunities and capabilities, how to make this mobility human-centric. And we have to remember that we need these technologies now at a certain point of time, and these are not rocket science technologies, and mobility should be more accessible and more affordable. And it is the share of a proposition in various spheres. Thank you so much. Thank you, dear panelists. Thank you, dear spectators, and see you soon. Goodbye.